On my birthday, as I sat alone in a silent kitchen sipping a cup of cold coffee, I received a message from my in laws. Happy birthday, I guess. At that exact moment, my sister in law, Megan, was on Instagram, sipping champagne at a luxury spa, being hailed as the queen of self care, even though it wasn't her birthday. I had spent years trying to become part of that family, trying to endure the cold shoulders, the favoritism, and the backhanded comments. But that day, I'd had enough. I didn't make a scene, I didn't scream, I just posted something, and then everything started to change, step by step, truth by truth. And this is my story. I only posted one thing, and then everything started to change. But to understand why I did it, you need to know this wasn't the first time I was treated like I was invisible in my own family. It was just the first time I fought back. Mark and I, my husband, have been married for 8 years. 8 years isn't forever, but it's long enough. Long enough to build a home. Long enough to realize I was never truly accepted. My in laws have always had a soft spot for Megan, Mark's younger sister. Beautiful, confident, the kind of woman who commands a room the moment she walks in. I wasn't jealous. At least I used to think I wasn't. I just wanted to be treated fairly, to be respected as part of the family. But that day, my birthday, shattered whatever illusions I had left, like a soap bubble popping midair. I woke up before my alarm like always. Toast, our dog, was softly snoring at the foot of the bed. Mark was already in the bathroom. There was no smell of coffee, no clinking of breakfast being made. Little things, maybe, but to me, they've always been quiet signals of care. I walked into the kitchen. It was empty. Quiet like any ordinary Thursday morning. But it wasn't. Today was my birthday. I made my own coffee, sat down, and unlocked my phone. I wasn't expecting gifts or grand surprises, just a bit of warmth, a sweet message, a short phone call, maybe even just a heart emoji. But the only message I got from my in laws was, happy birthday, I guess. No emoji, no mention of my name, no love. Just that. Cold and hollow, like they only remembered because Facebook told them to. I was used to this kind of treatment, but this time it wasn't just indifference. It was a silent slap in the face. Then I opened Instagram, and my heart sank. The very first image I saw was Megan, my sister-in-law, lounging in a luxury hot tub at Therm Spa in Bellevue, her face perfectly made up, holding a glass of champagne, smiling like she was modeling for a high-end lifestyle magazine. The caption underneath read, "Birthday spa day for our beautiful girl, self-care queen." Do you get it? It was my birthday. And Megan, she wasn't born that day, not that week, not even that month. There was no reason for it, except one. They chose that day, my day, to celebrate her, as if to say, you don't matter. I sat there sipping watered down coffee, rereading that caption, scrolling through each image, the luxury breakfast, the steam room, the imported champagne. And me? I was in an old bathrobe, my hair a mess, and a growing emptiness clawing at my chest. Mark walked out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, drying his hair, and casually asked, "Want to grab IHOP or something?" I didn't respond. I just handed him my phone and let him see it for himself. He glanced at the screen, gave a little nod like I'd just shown him the weather, and said with a shrug, "You know, they just show love in their own way." Can you imagine that? That was my husband's reaction, the man who should have seen the pain in my eyes and instead calmly explained it away like it was some harmless family quirk. That was the moment I realized something undeniable. I'd gotten so used to being neglected that other people thought it was normal. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't throw a fit, I just laughed. A dry, bitter laugh at myself. Then I stood up, looked Mark in the eye, and said, "Funny thing, because I just sent out an announcement too." That was the moment everything changed. That was when I stopped waiting to be loved and started giving that love to myself. But you know what? The most painful part wasn't the spa. It wasn't the half hearted message. It was the fact that I used to believe they'd change. That if I were kind enough, patient enough, humble enough, they'd open their hearts. But no, some doors are made of stone, not meant to open, only meant to bruise those who keep knocking. And that birthday, the day that should have been full of wishes and warmth, became a quiet goodbye between me and the woman I used to be. I told Mark that I had just sent out a notice. He frowned and asked, "A notice about what?" But I didn't answer. Not right then, because that notice was actually the birthday gift I gave myself. For all those years as a daughter-in-law, I tried so hard to mold myself into the kind of woman my in-laws expected me to be. Not too outspoken, not too opinionated, always gentle and accommodating. But the cost of being accommodating is becoming invisible. And at this point in my life, I no longer wanted to be a shadow in my own home. The truth is, I had been planning this for weeks. I didn't tell anyone, not even Mark, because I wanted to keep it to myself, at least until I was sure. I had just been offered a major promotion at work. I'll be the regional director overseeing the entire Seattle operation. Higher salary, better benefits, but what thrilled me most was the freedom to choose where to live. No longer tied to proximity, I could finally leave my husband's neighborhood, a place full of cold memories and quiet disappointments. And I did something I hadn't dared to do in the last 8 years. I put down a deposit on a new home, in my name only. Not a cramped apartment downtown, but a sunlit, green-filled, peaceful house on Bainbridge Island, where birdsong and ocean waves would become the soundtrack of my new life. You see, boss, I didn't just buy a house. I bought back the peace I had lost for far too long. That morning, after seeing Megan's spa post and receiving another soulless message from my in-laws, I didn't cry. I posted. Just one short status, no tags, no shade, but every word sliced through the polite facade they'd used to treat me all these years. After years of hard work, I'm officially the new regional director. Even better, we've just bought our dream home on Bainbridge Island. Can't wait to start this next chapter of life. I didn't add much else. No photo, no emojis. But the weight of that announcement was more than enough. Within an hour, 5 missed calls from my mother-in-law, 2 messages from my father-in-law, and 1 curt text from Megan. "What is this?" Mark stood in the kitchen, staring at me, a mix of shock and caution in his eyes. "You're moving out." I picked up my coffee cup and smiled gently. "We're moving out, but if you'd prefer, I can go alone." That evening, the in-laws invited us over for dinner. Called it a belated birthday celebration. Ridiculous. If I hadn't posted, I'm sure none of them would have remembered what day it was. We stepped into the same old house where I had tried so many times to belong, the same half-hearted hugs, the same polite but cold smiles, no birthday cake, no card, just reheated lasagna and a bottle of fancy wine that cost less than it pretended to. My mother-in-law spoke like a machine. "Congratulations on the job and the house. We all saw your post." I nodded and replied softly, like the wind. "Thank you. It all came after years of effort. Now it's time to start living for myself." My father-in-law chimed in, "Bainbridge is a big move." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Not that big when you've planned it for a long time. I wanted somewhere that truly feels like home." Megan sat at the edge of the table, eyes glued to her phone, fingers tapping like she was texting an SOS. Finally, she looked up. "When are you moving?" 2 weeks. "That soon?" I smiled. "Yeah. When you focus on your own path, things move fast." Silence filled the room. Mark looked at me like he was seeing a completely different wife. No longer a woman trying to be loved, but a woman who knew she deserved more. 3 days later, Mark left his phone on the table by accident. A text popped up from his mother that made my heart stop. But that's for the next chapter. What you need to know right now, boss, is this. I didn't choose revenge. I didn't choose bitterness. I chose to rise. I chose peace. And most of all, I chose to build a life I don't need anyone's permission to walk into. I chose peace. I chose to rebuild my life from the shattered pieces of being disregarded. But what I didn't expect was this. They wouldn't let go, even after I did. 3 days after that painfully awkward family dinner, I was cleaning up the kitchen when I noticed Mark had left his phone on the table. He'd just stepped out to walk toast. The door was ajar, and I could hear his footsteps fading down the leaf-covered path. I hadn't planned on looking at the phone. I'm not the snooping type. But then the screen lit up, and a message flashed under the sender's name. Mom. She's always making you look like the weak one. Don't let her control you. Megan would never treat family like that. It felt like a punch to the chest. My heart pounded. My palms went cold. I held the phone like it was something filthy. Part of me wanted to set it down. But the other part, the one that I'd been silently breaking for 8 years of being their daughter-in-law, whispered, "It's time to face the truth." I opened the thread. Line after line, the messages were sugar-coated cruelty. They weren't just talking behind my back. They were dissecting me like some unwelcome growth. She just wants to feel important. The promotion and buying that house, she did it to prove a point. No one actually lives on an island. That's not a real home. Mark should have married someone who fits better with a family lifestyle. Each sentence cut deeper than the last. I had told myself that if I was kinder, more patient, more agreeable, they might change. But they never even believed I was worth it in the first place. I sank onto the kitchen floor, the phone still glowing in my hand. My eyes burned. But I didn't cry. Not this time. I wasn't just angry. I felt betrayed. I was the one who had stood by Mark, cooked, cleaned, encouraged him, stood strong during job losses and tight budgets. I was the quiet engine behind everything he became. And behind my back, he said nothing as his mother and sister tore me down. Not only did he stay silent, he sometimes replied, "Yeah, maybe. We'll see." I used to call that neutral. But now I knew. Neutrality in the face of injustice is complicity. When Mark came back, I didn't yell. I simply held the phone out and said, calmer than I felt, "You should read this." His face changed immediately. He didn't ask why I read it. Didn't lash out. Maybe he knew. Some truths can't stay buried forever. Mark sat down, buried his head in his hands, and said nothing. I stood there staring at the man I used to love the most, now feeling like a stranger. "Don't tell me they didn't mean it," I said, my voice low but steady. "Don't defend them. Not again." Mark swallowed hard. "They're just worried. They think you're pulling me away from—" "They never had you," I interrupted. "I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who endured those forced dinners, smiled through their jabs. I supported you, not the people who only show up to manipulate you." He didn't argue, didn't deny, didn't run. And when I looked in his eyes, I saw it. He always knew. But he was afraid of change. I took a deep breath and finally said what I'd buried for far too long. "When I move to Bainbridge, I'm going. With or without you." It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. 3 days later, we started packing. Mark spoke less, but he helped pick paint colors, labeled the boxes, bought twine for bundling. Maybe he was starting to understand. Or maybe he was clinging to what used to be. Whatever it was, I didn't blame him anymore. but I wasn't holding on to him at any cost either. Then, one afternoon, Mark walked into the kitchen holding a glossy ivory envelope, tension in his jaw. This came from Megan. I took it and opened it. Inside was a thick, embossed invitation wrapped in satin ribbon. Megan's pre-engagement celebration brunch, Four Seasons rooftop, champagne tower dress code, pastel formal. I looked at the date. It was the exact day we were scheduled to move. I laughed. Not from amusement, but at the sheer transparency of it. They were sending a message. Even if I left, they still ran the narrative. They wanted me to know I would never belong. And Megan, the pastel-loving, self-obsessed sister-in-law, was still their chosen princess. But I had my own way of responding. I posted something short, not bitter, just honest enough to shake the silence. Grateful for everyone who truly supported our journey. This week, we move into our dream home, a place where hearts feel safe. Some things don't need to be explained, just felt. I added 3 photos: toast and me on the ferry, wind in our hair, Mark painting the kitchen cabinets, calm and focused, and finally our new front porch, with a doormat that read, "Home sweet home, our life begins here." And that was the moment I knew. I had entered a new chapter, no permission needed. I knew it. The post, along with the photos from our new home, made Megan restless. That evening, Mark's phone buzzed. This time, the message was from Megan herself, and I saw it with my own eyes, because after everything that happened, Mark no longer kept secrets from me. I didn't want to bring this up at brunch, but maybe you two should take a break. Everyone feels like she's trying to replace us. She's changing you. You haven't been yourself since she got promoted. By the time I finished reading, I felt a wave of emotions. Anger, yes, but also pity. Megan wasn't just the spoiled sister-in-law anymore. She was afraid. Afraid of losing her power, her spotlight, her grip on the family. Mark looked at me, eyes hollow. And then he did something I didn't expect. He opened a group chat, added his mom, dad, and Megan, and typed, "We're moving this weekend. I love you all, but I can't keep living like I owe the family something. If you want to be part of my future, come with respect. If not, step aside." No one replied. 2 days later, his father sent one message. "Good luck with island life. Don't say no one warned you. No, I love yous. No, keep in touch. Just a warning, cold as steel." I thought that was the end of it. Until 3 days later, Mark received an invitation to his father's retirement party at an exclusive country club in Bellevue. That party, the one Megan used to brag about being tight guest list only, reserved for those who could appreciate sophistication. Of course, I wasn't invited. Megan made sure of that. Mark placed the invitation on the table. I looked at him, calm and cool. "We're going." "You sure?" "Not because I want to, because I need to." That club was quiet in the most artificial way. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished wood floors. The scent of lemon and furniture polish hung in the air, luxurious but sterile. Polite laughter drifted by like whispers with hidden blades. I walked in hand with Mark. I deliberately wore the same dress Megan mocked 3 years ago as off-brand. This time I paired it with red lips, sharp eyes, and a posture that dared anyone to challenge me. My mother-in-law spotted me first. No hug, no warm, "Oh, you made it." Just a strained, crooked smile. "Oh, you actually came?" "Of course. We're family," I replied without blinking. I didn't come to cause chaos. I came to end it. Megan stood by the bar, surrounded by finance world acquaintances, holding a glass of champagne, laughing a bit too loudly like she had something to prove. She saw me and froze for half a second. Then her lips curled into a picture-perfect fake smile. "Wow, Didn't think you'd show up. I live nearby. Thought I'd swing by. You mean from that tiny island of yours? I tilted my head. Still better than sneaking into someone's backyard like a thief. Megan's mouth clamped shut. But I wasn't done. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. I know everything. The texts, the snide invitations, the clean up your life gift box, even the anonymous complaint to my company. Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, and you're scared. Because I'm no longer waiting to be accepted? I've built a world you can't enter. Mark stepped up beside me just then. He looked at his sister, eyes no longer those of the obliging older brother. I read the text too. The ones where you and Mom said I should marry someone else, that she just wants control. You're not helping me anymore. You're trying to puppeteer me. The air around us froze. People were beginning to notice. His parents turned to look. His mother stormed over, sharp-voiced. What is going on here? Megan choked for a moment, then raised her voice. She's tearing this family apart. I'm just trying to protect you, Mark. She's always been the problem. I looked calmly at my mother-in-law. If you had just treated me like a human being instead of an obstacle, today wouldn't be happening. Mark turned to his mom, voice firm. I'm a grown man, and I won't let anyone, not even family, make my wife feel small again. No one said a word. Megan's face flushed. Her eyes shone with unshed tears, but pride kept her upright. She stomped off through the crowd, heels clacking like a threat. But the soft sniff halfway through betrayed her real feelings. His mother followed her. His father, who'd always stayed silent, looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. I'm sorry, he said. Quiet. Honest. That means more than she realizes. I answered. We left the party early. On the way back to Bainbridge, the salty wind and quiet air felt peaceful. Mark asked me, how do you feel? Like after a storm, calm. That night, as we left the glittering fake smiles of the party behind, I sat beside Mark in the car, watching the winding roads blur past as we made our way back to Bainbridge Island. The window was slightly cracked, letting in the salty breeze from the sea and the gentle rustle of pine trees lining the road. No one said a word. But it wasn't tense. It was quiet. Soft, like the breath you take after a long, brutal storm. I leaned my head against the window, watching the streetlights reflect across the pavement. And strangely, I felt light. Not because I had won anything, but because I had finally stopped chasing love from people who never intended to give it. The next morning I woke early, as always. The sun had just begun to peek through the trees, casting a pale golden light over the lake. Mark was already sitting on the porch steps, holding 2 cups of coffee. Toast was curled up at his feet. I stepped outside and sat down next to him. How are you feeling? He asked, not looking at me, his eyes still fixed on the shimmering water. I took a sip of coffee and smiled gently. Free. Mark nodded. I don't think they're ever going to come around. I shook my head, calm and steady. I don't need them to. I didn't move out here to be close to them. I moved out here to be closer to myself. 2 weeks passed. We started to settle in. The new house smelled of fresh paint and clean wood. Cardboard boxes were slowly disappearing. Green plants had found their places around the porch. I began my new role at work, busy, high pressure, but deeply fulfilling. Each evening I'd sit on the boat deck, watching the sun sink below the waterline, listening to the waves and watching Toast chase invisible birds. For the first time in years, I felt like I was truly living. And then, like something out of a tired old script, a gift basket showed up on our doorstep. No sender listed, just a little card. Welcome to the island from one local to another. M. Inside was a cheap bottle of wine, a bar of eucalyptus soap, and Marie Kondo's The Life Changing Magic of Tidying Up. I stared at it for a moment, then laughed. Not out of pain, not bitterness, but because it was honestly funny how someone who always saw herself as the center of the universe felt threatened just because I dared to live well. A few afternoons later, I got a call from HR. The voice on the other end was soft but serious. Someone submitted an anonymous complaint about your leadership, said you're biased, threatening staff, abusing your position. I froze. Not because I believed it. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but because I knew exactly who was behind it. They continued. We looked into it. Your record is clean. Department heads confirmed you've been nothing but professional. Still, we thought you should know. Someone's trying to undermine you. I nodded, thanked them, hung up. My hand was trembling slightly. No evidence. But I knew. It was Megan. Because only one person speaks in that exact tone. She's changed him. She's controlling. She's not family. And then it hit me. Megan wasn't just jealous. She was scared. Scared that, for the first time in her life, the spotlight had shifted off her. I didn't fight back. I didn't file complaints. I didn't post a single thing. I shifted strategies. I focused on doing my job really well. I built strong relationships with my team. I earned trust and I protected my reputation. I poured my energy into our home, turned it into a true sanctuary. And most importantly, I let them see me. Happy, whole, unafraid, unaffected. The retirement party had only been the end of an old chapter. The real story began after that. A story where I no longer waited to be accepted. One day, I stumbled across one of Megan's posts. A picture in a high-rise apartment, her standing alone, glass of wine in hand. The caption read, "Some people move away to find peace. Others move to run." A few of her friends hit like. The comment section was empty. I didn't respond. Didn't send an emoji. Didn't share it. I didn't need to speak anymore. My life was speaking for me. My greatest victory wasn't making them regret it. It wasn't forcing an apology. It was leaving. Choosing not to live for someone else's comfort. Believing I deserved more. And then creating that more for myself. I didn't destroy Megan. I didn't have to. I simply showed her a world she could never touch. Because I had stopped waiting to be invited into hers. I built one of my own. And now, as I sit on the porch, coffee in hand, Toast barking softly somewhere in the yard, Mark places his hand gently over mine and asks, "Was it worth it?" I smile, eyes on the sea. More than ever. Not all revenge is loud. Not all justice needs applause. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is leaving, quietly, beautifully, and letting them stay behind, drowning in their own bitterness. And I did it. Not to hurt them, but to finally set myself free.